I saw a clip a while ago where someone was being interviewed, and the guy said that teaching approach is more important than the style. I get what they meant, but I don't necessarily 100% agree with that statement. The reason being is you can be the most patient and articulate instructor in the world, but if you're teaching something that will not translate well, then it's useless to an extent. As I've mentioned with other clips, nothing is completely useless. But if we are looking at the objective of Arbud and arbud.co.uk, if we're looking at that to be self-defense and the objective is avoid, if we can't avoid, we need to be working on escape. To escape, we need to be doing something physical that will stop the guy, even if it's only momentarily. You can be the best Aikido instructor in the world. Your application of teaching Aikido can be the greatest way of teaching anything ever in the world, anywhere. However, it's not going to work for us. You can be so patient, so articulate, so elegant, eloquent with the way you teach, yet you're teaching me something that will not work. So, in a way, it's very similar to people making the argument for Steven Seagal. People make an argument for Steven Seagal saying that he's a seventh dan, he might be eighth dan now. He's seventh or eighth dan in Aikido. He's up there. Yes, he is, but he's up there in Aikido, and Aikido, as we've already gone over, will not translate very well to real fighting. It doesn't translate well to a match fight, and it doesn't really translate well to self-defense. So, yeah, he's really good, but he's good at something that doesn't work. So you might be really, really good at teaching, but if you're teaching something that doesn't work, that's going to be an issue. So, if you're a really friendly, approachable person, and you always take your time, and you're always very patient with your students, and you find a way, because every single student is different. Some students need a drill sergeant, some students need a counsellor, and everything in between. That's just the nature of human beings. That's the way it is. If you have a difficult time adapting to your students' needs, you either shouldn't be teaching or you need to bring somebody else in to help you teach who has the other side of the coin. I'm not a big fan of being the drill sergeant, but I can be if need be, because I know that's what the student needs. So my discomfort at yelling at you is overridden by my job is to teach you this technique and teach you whatever it is, and you are paying me for it, so that's what I'm going to do for you. So I think the approach is necessary to look at. I think the approach is important. It could be you could be a judo instructor, but if you don't know how to get the information out from your brain, there's no point in us being there. You could be a Thai boxing or a boxing instructor, but if you're a grumpy, miserable git who just nobody likes being around you, I'm not going to come back, even though boxing and Thai boxing are two very, very useful and effective arts for self-defense and for match fighting. I'm not going to come back to that class. Yeah, I'll just take Thai boxing. Went to a Thai boxing club a while ago. I was ignored by everybody when I first walked through the door. The actual instructor only came over to me after about 10 minutes, just purely to take my money off me. I saw certain things in that class, even though it's a Thai boxing class, I saw certain things that I personally don't agree with, such as inside leg kicks on a student whilst the guy kicking him was wearing hiking boots. Thai boxing is a very, very, very good art. It's a very good style for both matchmaking and self-defense. I never went back because I didn't agree with the way it was being taught. I didn't agree with the attitude of the instructor. So in that sense, yes, approach is very, very important. But again, if that guy had been the flip of that and had been a very good instructor, but what he was teaching was useless, I don't know that I would have gone back. If that guy had been a little bit more subdued, maybe I would have gone back. I think the approach is important, but the style that's being taught is equally as important. I don't think one really overacts the other. I don't think one is more important than the other. Certain attitudes, certain foibles of people and quirks of people's personality, you can kind of look past. But depending on what you're doing, I think it's so. If I was looking at this to compete in Thai boxing, I probably would have sucked it up, grinned and bear it, and gone back. I probably would have gone back to that class despite the guy's approach to teaching, because it was the style that I wanted to get. It was the knowledge of doing that I wanted to get. Very lucky in the city I live in. There's several different places you can do that. Very lucky that I had previous Thai boxing instruction so that I could go to that gym and just use the bags that were available. I could get some people together and we could just use the pads that we already have. So approach is important, but I don't think it's more important than the style you're teaching. I think often what happens is, certainly with a lot of traditional martial arts, you teach something that does not work, but you're so lovable and so likable and so convincing that people buy into it, and they think, yeah, this is going to keep me safe, and then they're getting their heads taken off. So approach is important, regardless of what you're teaching. Approach is important regardless of what you're doing. The way you approach and interact with people is very, very important. But I think the style is important. I think the style that you are teaching, if it's a guy who's certainly not the most talkative guy in the world, but he's teaching something that works, compared to a guy who's super, super friendly, but what he teaches doesn't work at all, it's up to you to decide, well, what am I studying for? What is your objective? If my objective is, I know I'm going to be spending the summer working on the doors, I'm probably going to suck it up, buttercup, and get into the class with a guy who's surly and not overly talkative to have something that will work, as opposed to going with the guy who's super friendly but what he teaches doesn't work. So on that regard, approach maybe is more important, but for me, I think the style is important. The approach of doing it isn't so much in that regard, depending on your objective. Hope that makes sense. I hope I haven't confused everybody as I've confused myself. If you agree, if you disagree, comments box. Train hard, train smart, stay safe.